today, I feel like going for a run. I know it feels odd, so I thought, why not talk about cardio and why not talk about running? So make sure you stay tuned, hang around, so I'm talk to you about when and how it's appropriate to do it. And if you are gonna run, just some of the basics. How are we feeling, Alex? Well, I'll tell you what, my first thought is it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but I also need to improve my cardiovascular fitness. Alright, so we're here, can you believe it? Doing a run. I know this is big news for a lot of people because, as word has it, apparently I don't like running. Now, it's not that I dislike running, I don't love running, but I wanted to go through and talk a little bit about cardio today, about running, about the context of it, and perhaps give you a little bit more education around if, when, how, and why, in terms of if you want to run, you can definitely run. But a lot of clients that I work with, they do a lot of running because they're trying to lose weight and they think they have to, or they think they have to do excessive cardio, and it's not the case. So today, I feel like going for a run. I know it feels odd, so I thought, why not talk about cardio and why not talk about running? So make sure you stay tuned, hang around, so I'm talk to you about when and how it's appropriate to do it. And if you are gonna run, just some of the basics. Yes, because I'm fortunate enough to know some top runners and top athletes that can even help you out if you do love running. So stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna warm up with a little bit of a walk. The man behind the camera, as always, Jacob, the one responsible for all of the amazing content that you see. And now there's like a whole heap of people walking, just like, what is this guy doing? But you know what? One of my friends who's a very, very successful YouTuber, he said to me, Alex, when you can walk and just hold a camera up and literally not give a flying fuck what people think, that's when you know you're ready for YouTube. And that's where we're at right now. So anyway, we're talking about cardio, right? So one of the biggest misconceptions that you have to do it, you don't. Now, if we think about cardiovascular, like when we talk about cardio, it's one of the energy systems right of the body when we talk about aerobic. So if you're someone who is a strength-based athlete and you want to enhance your physique, yes, you can still do cardio, but think about it like this. The body adapts to the stimulus of which you give it most, especially if it's done in a way that's effective. So what I mean by that is what you do most is what you're going to adapt to. So for example, a lot of people, they're trying to build a strong physique, right? They're trying to build muscle, they're trying to build size, they're trying to build strength, but for some reason, they're doing excessive amounts of cardio. For example, they might be even doing double the amount of cardio that they're doing in weights. Now, if that's done at a certain rate, so for example, if it was just really, really casual walking or really low intensity, say swimming or biking, it might not have an effect, but most people are working at a certain intensity, which is going to change the body or change its demands. So for example, a lot of people doing a lot of cardio, we're just going to watch the bikes here, they're going to look really flat. They're generally not going to have the physique they want. They're not going to have the same energy to be able to perform maybe their muscular tasks, etc. And you might think, well, hey, hang on, what about CrossFit? Now, this is a really good point, but you've got to look at, when you look at the CrossFit athletes, they're working at a certain rate. So for example, there's two ways you can build muscle. It's mechanical tension and metabolic fatigue. Now, those CrossFitters, if you watch the professionals that are jacked, one, they have a background of bodybuilding and powerlifting. Let's go over this side. So they've already built up like a really, really good foundational physique of strength. And they also work at a super fucking high rate. Most of you guys that are doing those excessive amounts of cardio, you're not working at that rate and you generally don't have that foundation. And if you do, that's probably why you still look built and you can do all the running, etc. So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about cardio. But again, think about your goal and work backwards. If your goal is to look like a strength athlete, then you should probably do that more so. And again, if we use another example of say a sprinter's not doing excessive amounts of cardio. They might do a lot of conditioning work, but it's explosive and it's powerful and it's tapping into the first two energy systems, ATP, CP, and also anaerobic. So therefore the demand is so. Now again, don't want to confuse you, but for those who want a bit of science, I want to drab a little bit in there because there's a lot of people that will be like, but hey, this person does cardio and they look like X, and I get it. But you've got to really unpack and look at the context of which that happens. So again, start with the goal in mind and work backwards. A couple of key things as well if you are going to run, make sure you enjoy it. The knees are ticking time bombs. A lot of people have got really bad form or they go balls to the walls. Make sure you've got some good footwear, right? So again, I always talk about when you're training, something flat, stable, sturdy. If you're going to be doing running, you want the opposite, guys. You basically want the shoe that I tell you not to squat in. So you want something with cushioning. You want something that is appropriate for your strike or your shape of your foot. So you have people who pronate, which they walk in, and you have people who supinate that come out, and sometimes you're neutral. So depending on the type of foot and how much you're running, it might be worth going down to your local running shop, asking someone that's got a bit of knowledge on running and getting a shoe that is right for you, because that will dramatically over time help you avoid the impact on your knee. It will keep your joints healthy, and it will allow you to keep running if that's what you want to do, and or do other things that involve a lot of knee joints, which is pretty much everything. So anyway, there's some science, there's some context. Me and Jacob, we're gonna go for more of a warm-up now, and we're gonna talk a little bit more when we get to about midway point through our destination of this beautiful place, the Gold Coast. And we'll talk a little bit more about running and how you could implement it into your training schedule if you still wanna do it and you still want to be more of a physique-based athlete. So we'll catch you then. So I said that I would talk to you about how you can actually implement cardio into your weight training regime. I've actually got about 150 people watching me now who are also going to be tuning in later, I hope. They can't hear me, they're just thinking, what is this crazy man doing talking to the camera with a shirt off in winter, you idiot. No, not really. Anyway, so if you want to implement your cardio into your weight training regime in all seriousness, you want to make sure, again, it only takes a portion. You always want to keep the priority the priority. If you are someone who's a competitive runner, or you want to program up to that, it is something that you might need to sacrifice some of your weight training at some point to then peak for a competition phase, or even make sure you rest the body, because obviously if you're training, you're doing a lot of lower body, you need to make sure that obviously your legs are fresh. Now, if you are going to implement your cardio in, and let's assume that you just want to do some cardio, it's not going to be really basic, but it's not going to be super advanced. Obviously, don't program the running before or after any immediate or really high intensity leg days. Make sure that, again, it's going to be something that you can adapt to. So for example, say that you're not sure, you want to make sure that, let's assume you're doing a 4-day split, you might start with 1 or 2 runs a week, see how your recovery is. Make sure that obviously you're recovering from your workouts, you're recovering from your runs. Then if you feel like you want to do more and you can, you might just then up the ante over time. So for example, then you might go to, say, longer runs. You might even then split the runs. So you might have 2 or 3 a week, or you might even go for the frequency and have more runs, but they might be less intensity and they might be shorter in duration. So again, it's a case of trial and error, but as a rule of thumb, you never really want to double the intensity or the time amount in your cardio as in the main, or instead of the main component. So for example, say you're doing 5 hours of strength training a week, for example, you won't want to do any more than double of that than running. So for example, if you were doing, say, 10 hours of running, you're probably going to start to take away and see negative effects, and you'll probably see negative effects before that. So just keep it in mind, guys. Always keep the priority the priority. The principle of specificity remains, and that, again, if you're unsure, this might be then the good time to speak to a proper a strength coach if you're in the realms of the strength and conditioning world, or you might even speak to an endurance or an athletic coach who specializes in that, because they may have some experience not just with in the realms of cardiovascular or even doing more of the running at a high end or sprinting or whatever it might be, but they might even know coaches in that realm as well that can help you put that together. But again, cardio isn't bad, it's just that people do it very, very excessively, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next segment, in terms of people just doing cardio for cardio's sake and actually using it as a tool and having a better relationship with it, rather than just doing it because apparently that's what you do, or that's what you've been told by a lot of other coaches or a lot of other people who are supposedly getting in shape and having to do it multiple times a day or multiple times a week, when really it can be very excessive. Tell you what, I need to get my cardio better, because that is absolutely terrible. So, not a bad view, not a bad place to live, as we always talk about. So, I was going to tell you about cardio, and if you're going to program this into your workout, but more specifically now, cardio for cardio's sake. So, look, I'm not an expert runner, I'm not a marathon runner. You can talk to, again, some of my contacts, some of my friends about that. So, I'm not going to tell you how to suck eggs. However, I'm going to give you my 2 cents, like I've already talked about. I'm going to give you just some of what we know from the evidence, the literature, and experience. And again, it's subjective, a lot of this, guys, but what I can tell you from coaching physique athletes for over 10 years and getting people shredded to the bone without even using cardio is that there's a bit of a premise where a lot of people think that they have to do a lot of cardio. They think that they have to do fasted cardio, morning cardio, or even cardio twice a day. They think that they have to do cardio and weights, or weights and cardio, and it just isn't the case. Cardio is a tool. It's a tool in the physique realm to offset energy expenditure and or energy balance to put yourself in a greater deficit without taking away food. So it should be treated and used as one. For example, if I've got a hammer, doesn't mean everything's a nail. And a lot of the time, you only want to use cardio when you really have to. Again, we're not talking about the clinical side of things now. We're not talking about for general health. If you're someone who lifts weights and you do it on a regular basis, you're generally going to have some decent cardiovascular health markers or cardiovascular health. And I'm making assumptions here, we're generalizing. So again, there's always a rule against the law. From that perspective, it means that you don't need to do excessive amounts of cardio because again, unless you're trying to become an endurance athlete or you're severely unfit and you need to improve cardiovascular health, then you can. But you know, and I know, if you've ever done a set of deadlifts or leg press or anything compound lifts to failure, you are going to be huffing and you are going to be puffing. So you're going to be using your heart. So again, don't necessarily do excessive amounts of cardio because if you do, where are you going to go from there? You've got to add more cardio or you've got to then take away more food. And there's a lot of athletes or physique athletes who do this, they look flat, they don't look muscular, and they end up looking like string beans on stage. Or when they compete, they look saggy, they look flat, because again, they've depleted all their glycogen. They've pretty much gone to a point where there's nowhere else to go but down, so therefore they've not retained any lean mass because they've not been training efficiently, and they've adapted more to the look of someone who does endurance running rather than strength training. So there's some food for thought. As ever guys, questions, pop them in the comments below. And of course, remember, why we're here to subscribe. There's a lot of you who watch and you're not subscribed. So if you like my videos, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button now. And I'll see you in the next segment when we're almost finished this run. How are we feeling, Alex?
Well, I'll tell you what, my first thought is it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I also need to improve my cardiovascular fitness. But let's just say I won't be entering any Gold Coast marathons or winning them anytime soon. But hey, you never know, watch this space. What about you?
What about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, going well. Same as you, really.
This is what you need in a videographer, a cameraman. This is commitment, guys. He's actually coming along for the whole slide, not just this bit. So, kudos.
So I want to talk a little bit about nutrition as well, because after all, it is important, and you guys know I love nutrition, and I know you love nutrition, because every time I do anything regarding nutrition, you guys absolutely lap it up. So I am doing more on that, but quickly, remember guys, if we think about everything I've spoke about so far, and if you're just jumping in now, if you've skipped ahead, shame on you, but no, seriously, we think about offsetting energy balance, right? People doing cardio for cardio's sake. A lot of the time, the nutrition is the king. So not only for body composition change, so for example creating calorie deficit and losing body fat, but also for fueling performance. So there's two sides to this, right? If you're doing this to lose body fat, or again you're trying to be a physique competitor, don't do excessive cardio. Offset it with nutrition as well. Make sure you understand calorie deficits, make sure you know how to set up your protein, fat, carbs and fiber. And again, I'm not going to go into detail on that now because there's lots of other videos where I do that, but ultimately you need to understand how you're fueling body to be able to offset that energy deficit, so over time you can lose the appropriate amount of weight without starving yourself, but again without doing excessive cardio. 2, if you are running, and again you are being a physique competitor, you want to make sure you're fueling performance. There's no point in trying to put on weight and you're doing all this running and you're not eating enough calories. Again, if you're not in the opposite now, a surplus, you're not going to gain weight. You're not going to gain weight effectively, and if anything, you could be running your gains literally down the drain. So you've got to make sure that you again understand energy balance, you're fueling for not only gaining but also for performance. If you want to make a lot of running, you need to make sure that you're replenishing glycogen via adequate amounts of carbohydrate. You need to make sure you're hydrated. You need to make sure that again you're putting the salt and the electrolytes back in, especially if you're here in Australia where we are. It's a very hot country. It's a lot of sweating. You're going to lose a lot of electrolytes, a lot of vitamins and minerals through sweat. So you've got to make sure you replenish those as well. So good quality food, good quality nutrition, and adequate hydration is key. A rule of thumb, at least 3 liters a day, but again, this is a generalization because again, depending on your sporting demands, it could be more or it could be less. So again, food for thought, literally, when we talk about nutrition, very important, and if anything more important than the training stimulus itself, when we're looking at fueling performance and altering body composition. It is a large element, do not underestimate it. How about this for an evening, eh? Guys, to recap,
the video. Remember, cardiovascular training, if you're going to implement it, make sure, again, the basics, you segment it well, you periodize it well into your training. If you're unsure, hire a coach, or at least speak to a coach in that realm that can help you implement it into your training. Start with the end in mind, guys. Remember, what is the actual goal? The end goal, or what is the goal right now? Prioritize. It doesn't mean you can't run in the future, or it doesn't mean you can't bodybuild or physique or whatever it is in the future, but remember, if you want to be good at anything very well, you have to do the thing. You have to be committed to it, and it has to be the majority, or take up the majority of your time, effort, and discipline, because the body can only adapt so many ways. You can't chase all the colors of the rainbow at once. Again, make sure you got some good shoes like me and Jacob. Check out these bad boys. I'm a big fan of those. Woo! Shout out Nike and Asics. There we go, not sponsored, but anyway. Well, actually, if you go into Nike Rabina, tell a lie, and you mention Fearless Training, you will get looked after. So, and they're awesome, so true shout out to those guys. A lot of world-class runners there, so you can head in. And guys, remember, finally as well, make sure, again, if you are implementing it, that you understand your nutrition, your energy balance. Don't do cardio for cardio's sake. Do cardio if you enjoy it, and use it as a tool to serve the greater purpose dependent on your goal. Ensure you fuel the goal with adequate nutrition, whether that's a deficit and or replenishment and performance. And as ever, guys, if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments. Make sure to keep it positive. Let me know what we're going to see more of. And you guys already know, like, comment, share, subscribe. Until next time, stay fearless. That's a full moon.